Step back! First class isn't for your kind!
The words slice through the boarding area like a blade. Cristina Rodriguez doesn't lower her voice. She wants everyone to hear. Her uniform is crisp, her posture commanding, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. She plants herself directly in front of the elderly black couple blocking their path to the jet bridge. In exactly 25 minutes, Marcus Davis will walk through that same gate, the billionaire owner of the airline that employs her. Every person who humiliates his parents will be jobless before their flight lands. But Cristina doesn't know that yet. All she sees is what she wants to see. Two people who don't belong in her first-class cabin. Samuel Davis, 74, stands tall but patient. His dark brown skin is weathered by decades of work as a postal supervisor, his hands steady and gentle as they grip the handle of a worn leather carry-on. Beside him, Grace Davis, 71, clutches her boarding pass with both hands. Her silver hair is neatly arranged, her warm brown eyes kind but growing uncertain. They are dressed simply. Samuel in a pressed navy shirt and dark slacks. Grace in a soft blue blouse and comfortable shoes. No designer labels, no flashy jewelry, just two grandparents traveling to see their son. Ma'am Grace says softly, her voice carrying the patience of a woman who spent 35 years as an elementary school principal. Our tickets clearly show seats 2A and 2B. Cristina snatches the boarding passes from Grace's hands. She doesn't even glance at them before tearing them in half. The sound echoes like a gunshot in the sudden silence of the gate area. I don't care what your tickets show. Cristina snaps her Hispanic accent thick with disdain. I care what you can actually afford. And people like you don't afford first class. Around them, other passengers freeze. A businessman lowers his phone. A mother pulls her child closer. Someone starts recording but keeps the camera low hidden. Samuel's jaw tightens but his voice remains calm. We paid for those seats. Our son purchased them for us. Your son. Cristina laughs, the sound bitter and mocking. Let me guess. He's a doctor, right? A lawyer. That's what you people always claim. She turns to the gate agent behind the counter. Tyler, print new boarding passes for these two. Economy. Separate them. We can't have them thinking they've won something here. Tyler Mitchell, 29. Pale with nervous energy, hesitates for just a moment. He's seen this before. He knows it's wrong. But Cristina is his supervisor and he needs this job. The printer chirps. Two new boarding passes emerge. Grace looks down and her heart sinks. Row 34F, row 36B. Not together. Not even close. The back of the plane where the bathrooms smell and the engines roar loudest. There, Cristina says, waving the new passes like victory flags. Problem solved. Next time, maybe consider flying somewhere more appropriate for your budget. The boarding area at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport buzzes with the usual Thursday afternoon energy. Flight 447 to Atlanta sits at Gate B12, a Skyline Airlines Boeing 737 that gleams silver in the Arizona sunshine streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Samuel and Grace Davis have been married for 52 years. They've survived segregation, raised 3 children, buried parents, celebrated grandchildren, and weathered every storm life threw at them. But standing here holding torn boarding passes, they feel smaller than they have in decades. You can't do this, Grace whispers, but her voice lacks conviction. She's seen this script before. Different decade, same hatred. Cristina Rodriguez adjusts her flight attendant wings, a 12-year veteran who's learned to wield her uniform like armor. Her dark hair is pulled back in a perfect bun, not a strand out of place. She's 5'6", but carries herself like she's 6 feet tall, especially when dealing with passengers she deems unworthy. Watch me, Cristina says. She motions to Tyler, who approaches reluctantly. Mr. Mitchell, Please explain our boarding policies to these passengers. Apparently, they're confused about how airlines work. Tyler Mitchell graduated from Arizona State 3 years ago with dreams of becoming a pilot. Instead, he's stuck checking tickets and taking orders from Christina. His blonde hair is styled conservatively. His blue eyes dart nervously between the elderly couple and his supervisor. Ma'am Tyler addresses Grace, his voice barely above a whisper. Skyline Airlines reserves the right to adjust seating assignments for operational reasons. What operational reasons? Samuel asks. His voice carries the authority of a man who supervised 30 postal workers for 20 years, who never missed a day, who earned respect through consistency and fairness. Tyler glances at Christina, who nods encouragingly. Well, sir, sometimes the manifest shows discrepancies, upgrades that weren't properly verified, tickets that might have been, obtained through irregular channels. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Samuel's hands clench into fists, then slowly relax. Grace places a gentle touch on his arm. After 5 decades together, she knows his tells. She knows when he's fighting not to become the angry black man they want him to be. Are you suggesting we stole these tickets? Samuel asks quietly. Christina steps closer, invading their space. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that first class is for verified passengers only. And right now, you're not verified. Behind them, the gate area has gone silent. Travelers pretend to read phones, check watches, anything to avoid the uncomfortable reality playing out in front of them. A few record discreetly. Most look away. Maria Fernandez, a ground crew supervisor in her mid-30s, watches from beside the jet bridge door. She's seen Christina pull this routine before. Always with passengers who don't fit the right profile. Always with enough plausible deniability to avoid consequences. Maria's radio crackles. Ground crew to gate B12 boarding ready in 15 minutes. She acknowledges the call but doesn't move. Something about this feels different. More cruel. More public. The elderly couple's dignity being stripped away piece by piece and no one stopping it. Grace looks at the new boarding passes again. 34F and 36B. She calculates quickly, as teachers do. 28 rows apart. She'll be squeezed against the window in the back, Samuel alone in the middle aisle, both of them surrounded by strangers. Please, Grace says. And the word costs her something. We're both in our 70s. We have medical conditions. Could we at least sit together? Christina's smile turns predatory. Medical conditions like what? Besides entitlement. My wife has arthritis, Samuel explains patiently. Sitting alone in cramped conditions causes her significant pain. Then maybe Christina says, her voice dripping with false concern. You should have thought about that before trying to sit in seats you can't afford. Tyler shifts uncomfortably. He's witnessed Christina's cruelty before, but never this public, never this vicious. Part of him wants to speak up. The larger part wants to keep his job. The boarding passes have been issued, Tyler says weakly. Gate policy states. Gate policy. Samuel interrupts, gently states that passengers should be treated with dignity and respect. Does this look like respect to you, son? The question hits Tyler like a physical blow. He looks at the couple, really looks at them. Samuel's tired eyes holding decades of patience. Grace's hands trembling slightly as she grips her purse. 2 people who could be his own grandparents being humiliated for sport. Tyler starts, then stops. Christina's glare could melt steel. The decision is final. Christina announces loudly, ensuring nearby passengers can hear. Security will be called if there's any further disruption. She turns on her heel and strides toward the jet bridge, her heels clicking like a countdown timer. Tyler follows, shoulders hunched, not meeting the couple's eyes. Samuel and Grace stand alone with their new boarding passes, their original seats stolen, their dignity trampled. Around them, the gate area slowly returns to life as passengers realize the show is over. But not everyone is looking away. Maria Fernandez pulls out her phone and opens TikTok. Her finger hovers over the record button. Some things she thinks need to be witnessed. The gate area at B12 hums with uncomfortable energy. Passengers steal glances at Samuel and Grace, some with sympathy, others with the relieved gratitude of people watching someone else's misfortune. Rebecca Stone arrives like a storm front. At 52, she's the kind of gate manager who believes power exists to be exercised, not shared. Her auburn hair is pulled back in a severe bun, her pantsuit pressed to military precision. She surveys the scene with calculating eyes. "Problem here?" Rebecca asks Christina, though her tone suggests she already knows the answer she wants. "Just a seating mix-up," Christina replies smoothly. "Some passengers trying to occupy seats beyond their fare class. Standard procedure was followed." Rebecca nods approvingly. "Good. Can't have people thinking they can game the airline. Sets a bad precedent." She approaches Samuel and Grace with the confidence of someone accustomed to having the last word. "I understand there's been some confusion about your seating assignment." "No confusion," Samuel says calmly. "Our son purchased first-class tickets for us. We have confirmation numbers." "Had confirmation numbers," Rebecca corrects. "Those have been voided due to irregular booking patterns." Grace's head snaps up. "Irregular how? Multiple surname discrepancies. Payment method flags. The computer flagged your reservation for review. It's a lie and Rebecca knows it. But it sounds official enough, technical enough to provide cover for what everyone in the gate area understands is happening." Maria Fernandez cannot stay quiet any longer. She steps forward, her skyline uniform giving her just enough authority to be heard. "Ma'am," Maria addresses Rebecca directly. "I ran the manifest check an hour ago. Those seats showed confirmed and paid. No flags in the server." Rebecca's eyes flash with annoyance. "And you are Maria Fernandez, Ground Operations Supervisor, badge number 4471. "Well, Supervisor Fernandez." Rebecca's voice drips with condescension. "Perhaps you should focus on ground operations and leave passenger services to the professionals." But Maria's intervention has an effect. Other passengers lean in, sensing the lie. Phones begin appearing not so discreetly now. The power dynamic is shifting, even if slightly. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a 45-year-old emergency room physician traveling to a medical conference, watches from seat 1C. She's seen enough institutional prejudice to recognize the pattern. The official-sounding justifications, the bureaucratic doublespeak, the casual cruelty dressed up as policy. She stands and approaches the desk. "Excuse me. I couldn't help but notice this couple seems to be experiencing some medical distress." Rebecca turns irritated by another interruption. "Are you their doctor?" "I'm a doctor. And that woman is showing signs of elevated blood pressure and stress-induced tremors. If you're going to continue this discussion, I'd like to monitor her vital signs." Grace looks up gratefully. A stranger showing kindness when officials show only contempt. It's a gift she didn't expect. "That won't be necessary," Rebecca snaps. "The issue is resolved. They have appropriate seating. Separated seating for an elderly couple with medical conditions hardly seems appropriate." Dr. Vasquez responds evenly. The crowd is growing. Boarding should have started 5 minutes ago, but everyone is frozen watching this drama unfold. Some record openly now. Others whisper among themselves. Tyler Mitchell stands behind Christina like a guilty shadow. He's watched this routine too many times, stayed silent too often. But today feels different. Maybe it's the couple's dignity in the face of humiliation. Maybe it's the way other passengers are finally paying attention. "The boarding passes have been reissued," Tyler says suddenly. All eyes turn to him. But maybe we could find adjacent economy seats. For medical reasons." Christina whirls on him. "Mr. Mitchell, the seats are assigned. Period. I was just thinking." "Don't think. Follow procedure." The rebuke is sharp enough to draw blood. Tyler shrinks back, but something in his eyes has changed. A line has been crossed. Maria Fernandez makes a decision that will change her life. She opens TikTok, points her camera, and hits record. "This is what discrimination looks like in 2024, she says quietly into her phone. An elderly African-American couple with valid first-class tickets being forced into economy and separated because they don't look like they belong. Turn that off, Rebecca snaps. It's a public space. Maria replies, still filming. And this is a public service announcement. The words carry across the gate area. Other passengers begin recording too. The age of viral accountability has arrived at gate B12. Samuel watches it all with the patience of a man who's seen this movie before. He knows how it ends. The question is whether anything will be different this time. Grace whispers under her breath, words only Samuel can hear. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. 35,000 feet above them, a private jet begins its descent into Phoenix. The passenger in seat 1A checks his phone and sees missed calls from his parents. He's running late for their pickup, but the flight delays are beyond his control. Marcus Davis has no idea his parents' world is being shattered, one dignity at a time. The boarding announcement crackles over the intercom with artificial cheer. Skyline Flight 447 to Atlanta is now boarding all passengers. Samuel and Grace Davis walk the walk of the condemned. Every step down the jet bridge feels like a judgment rendered a sentence served. Other passengers part before them like they're contagious, their shame so thick it's almost visible. The first-class cabin gleams with leather seats and polished surfaces. Samuel catches a glimpse of 2A and 2B, their seats now occupied by a businessman reading the Wall Street Journal and a woman sipping champagne. Neither looks up as the elderly couple passes. Keep walking, Christina commands from behind them. Her voice carries the satisfaction of someone who's won a game only she was playing. The fabric barrier between first class and economy might as well be a prison door. The seats immediately shrink. The ceiling drops, the air thickens. Grace stumbles slightly, her arthritis flaring from stress in the narrow aisle. Steady baby Samuel whispers, his hand gentle on her back. Row 34F sits against the window in the very back of the plane. Grace looks at her assigned seat middle position between a large man who's already claiming both armrests and a teenager with headphones blasting music loud enough to rattle the tray table. 2 rows away, 36B awaits Samuel. Middle seat, between a woman clutching a crying infant and a man whose cologne is strong enough to strip paint. This is wrong, Grace says quietly, but her words carry in the cramped space. Ma'am Tyler Mitchell appears beside them, his face flushed with guilt and authority in equal measure. I need you to take your assigned seats so we can complete boarding. We're 70+ years old, Samuel explains patiently. We've been married 52 years. We take care of each other. Separation is not just uncomfortable, it's potentially dangerous. Tyler's resolve wavers. He's seen his own grandparents struggle with travel, watched them support each other through every challenge. The parallel is impossible to ignore. I understand, sir, but the assignments are final. If you'd like to file a complaint with who Grace asks. Your supervisor just told us we're lucky to be on the plane at all. Behind them, the boarding line has slowed to a crawl. Passengers crane their necks to see what's causing the delay. Some mutter impatiently. Others watch with growing unease. Maria Fernandez follows the drama with her camera staying far enough back to avoid confrontation but close enough to document everything. Her TikTok video is already gaining views, shares comments. The hashtag Elderly Dignity Matters is beginning to trend. Dr. Vasquez has taken a first-class seat but keeps looking back toward the commotion. Her medical training includes recognizing distress signals, and Grace Davis is showing all of them. Elevated breathing, trembling hands, the glazed look of someone in shock. Flight attendant, Dr. Vasquez calls to Christina. I'm concerned about that passenger's medical condition. Christina barely glances back. She's fine. People exaggerate medical conditions to get special treatment all the time. I'm a licensed physician. I'm telling you she's showing signs of a hypertensive episode. And I'm a trained flight attendant with 12 years' experience. I know the difference between medical emergency and manipulation. The exchange carries through the cabin. Other passengers listen with growing discomfort. This has gone beyond seating arrangements into something darker, more personal. Samuel helps Grace into her middle seat. The large man beside her doesn't move his elbows. The teenager turns up his music. Grace closes her eyes and grips the armrests, her knuckles white against brown skin. "I'll be right there if you need me," Samuel says, though right there is 27 feet away through a maze of seats and hostile strangers. He makes his way to 36B, squeezing past passengers who look through him like he's invisible. The crying baby hits a particularly piercing note just as he sits down. The cologne-wearing man makes a show of moving his belongings away from Samuel's space. Christina stands in the front of economy, surveying her handiwork with evident satisfaction. Two elderly people separated, humiliated, stuffed into the worst seats on the plane. Justice in her mind has been served. But 30 miles away, Marcus Davis's private jet is on final approach. The CEO of Atlantic Aviation Group, the parent company that owns Skyline Airlines, checks his phone one more time. Still no response from his parents. They're probably already boarding, he thinks. Always early to everything. If only he knew. Tyler Mitchell makes one last attempt at redemption. He approaches Grace's seat with a cup of water. "Ma'am, would you like some water? For your blood pressure?" Grace looks up at him with eyes that have seen too much cruelty and too little kindness. "That's very thoughtful, son. But water won't fix what's broken here." The words hit Tyler like a physical blow. Around him, passengers pretend not to hear, but every syllable lands with precision. What's broken here isn't just a seating arrangement. It's the casual certainty that some people matter less than others. 52 years ago, Samuel Davis stood outside Grace Johnson's parents' house in Birmingham, Alabama, holding flowers he'd picked from his mother's garden and wearing his only good suit. The air was thick with summer heat and possibility, the future stretching ahead like an open road. He was 22, she was 19. He worked at the post office sorting mail in the segregated facility downtown. She taught Sunday school and dreamed of becoming a real teacher someday, when schools finally let black women do more than clean the classrooms. "You sure about this boy, Gracie?" her father had asked that evening, rocking on the porch while Samuel waited nervously in the parlor. "He's steady, but steady don't always put food on the table." Grace had smoothed her best dress and smiled with the confidence of a woman who sees past appearances to character. "Daddy, that man would walk through fire for the people he loves, and he's going to love our children the same way he loves me." She was right on both counts. Samuel had indeed walked through fire. 3 children raised on a postal supervisor's salary, a mortgage paid off early through overtime and sacrifice. 5 grandchildren who called him Papa and ran to him first at every family gathering. 45 years of steady work, never missing a day, earning respect through reliability rather than rhetoric. Grace had become the teacher she dreamed of being. Not just any teacher, a principal. 35 years shaping young minds at Carver Elementary, where she instituted the first reading program for struggling students and personally tutored kids whose parents worked double shifts. Her office walls were covered with graduation photos, wedding invitations, birth announcements from students who remembered the woman who believed in them when nobody else would. They built their life brick by brick, dollar by dollar, day by day. No shortcuts, no handouts, no excuses. When Samuel came home exhausted from lifting mail sacks and dealing with hostile supervisors who resented his competence, Grace would rub his shoulders and remind him that their children were watching. When Grace faced school board meetings where she was the only black face in the room, Samuel would iron her best dress and tell her to speak truth regardless of who wanted to hear it. Now they sit in the cramped economy section of Flight 447, separated like strangers, their lifetime of love and achievement reduced to the color of their skin and the assumptions of people who never bothered to learn their names. Samuel stares at the safety card without seeing it, remembering the conversation with Marcus 3 weeks ago. "Dad let me fly you first class. You and Mama have earned it. Son, economy is fine. We've never needed fancy. I know you don't need it. I want you to have it. For once in your lives, let someone take care of you the way you took care of everyone else." The tickets had arrived by overnight mail. 2 first-class seats on Skyline Airlines. Confirmation numbers printed in official-looking fonts. A gift from a son to parents who'd sacrificed everything so he could succeed. Marcus Davis had built Atlantic Aviation Group from nothing into a $4.2 billion empire. Private jets, commercial airlines, cargo operations across 3 continents. But his greatest achievement wasn't business success. It was remembering where he came from and who brought him there. He'd started Atlantic as a single-plane charter service working 18-hour days and sleeping in airport lounges. When banks wouldn't loan to a young black entrepreneur, Samuel had quietly mortgaged the family house to provide startup capital. When investors demanded control, Grace had reminded Marcus that integrity isn't for sale, no matter the price. "Your parents don't just love you," she'd told him during those early struggles. "They believe in you. Don't make them wrong about that." Every contract Marcus signed, every deal he negotiated, every expansion he planned, carried the weight of that belief. Atlantic grew because Marcus never forgot that success means nothing if it doesn't honor the people who made it possible. Grace shifts uncomfortably in her middle seat, the teenager's music pounding against her eardrums. Her arthritis flares when she's stressed and the cramped position sends sharp pains through her joints. She tries to find a comfortable position, but the large man beside her has claimed every inch of available space. She closes her eyes and returns to her morning routine, the one that sustained her through 52 years of marriage and 71 years of life. Psalm 23, memorized in childhood, polished smooth by repetition. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." 2 rows away, Samuel watches his wife's discomfort with the helpless frustration of a man who spent 5 decades protecting her from everything he could control. Her head is tilted at an awkward angle. Her breathing is shallow. She's in pain and there's nothing he can do about it. The crying baby reaches a new octave of distress. The cologne-wearing man mutters about people who can't control their children. The woman with the infant looks exhausted, apologetic, desperate. "First time flying with a baby?" Samuel asks gently. She nods, tears threatening. "He's usually so good. I don't know why he won't stop crying." "Ear pressure," Samuel explains kindly. "It hurts when they're little. Try making him swallow, bottle pacifier, anything." The woman follows his advice, and the baby's crying subsides to whimpers. She looks at Samuel with grateful relief. "Thank you." I was starting to panic. 3 children, 5 grandchildren. Samuel smiles. "You learn a few things. It's a moment of human connection in an environment designed to strip away humanity. But it also reminds Samuel of what he and Grace have built together, and what they're losing with every passing minute in these seats they don't deserve." 20 minutes into the flight, Cristina Rodriguez begins her campaign of organized cruelty. It starts small service carts, parked just close enough to block Grace's access to the bathroom. Drink service that somehow skips over Samuel's row. Accidental bumps while passing through the aisle. Grace raises her hand politely during the beverage service. She needs water for her blood pressure medication due 30 minutes ago. Cristina sees her hand and deliberately looks away, serving the passenger behind her with exaggerated attention. "Excuse me," Grace says softly. "We'll get to you," Cristina replies without making eye contact. The service cart moves past Grace's row entirely. She watches it go with the quiet resignation of someone who's been erased from visibility too many times to count. Tyler Mitchell follows behind with the second cart, his face flushed with embarrassment and complicity. When he reaches Grace's row, he pauses. "Would you like something to drink, ma'am? Water, please. For medication." Tyler reaches for a cup, but Christina's voice cuts through the cabin like a whip. "Mitchell, that section gets served after first class and premium economy. Standard protocol." Tyler's hand freezes. He looks at Grace, sees her medication bottle clutched in her arthritic fingers, sees the need in her eyes. He looks back at Christina, sees authority and threats in equal measure. But she said it was for medication. Standard. Protocol. Tyler moves on, leaving Grace without water. Around them, other passengers pretend not to notice, but the silence is thick with complicity and shame. Samuel watches from 2 rows back, his jaw tight with controlled fury. He signals to a flight attendant, not Christina, not Tyler, but a younger woman who looks uncomfortable with what she's witnessing. "Excuse me, miss. My wife needs water for her medication. She's in 34F. The attendant, Jessica Morales, glances nervously toward Christina. I'll check on that." She approaches Christina at the galley. Samuel can't hear their conversation, but he can read body language. Jessica pointing toward Grace, Christina shaking her head firmly, Jessica's shoulders sagging in defeat. No water comes. Grace closes her eyes and swallows her medication dry, the pills scraping down her throat like broken glass. The large man beside her watches with obvious disdain. Some people, he mutters loud enough to be heard, don't know how to travel properly. Grace doesn't respond. She's learned that engaging with cruelty often amplifies it. Instead, she folds her hands and returns to her prayers, finding strength in words that have sustained her through darker times than this. But the harassment is just beginning. 30 minutes later, Grace needs to use the bathroom. Her arthritis makes it difficult to hold her bladder for extended periods, especially under stress. She stands carefully, her joints protesting after sitting cramped for so long. The aisle is blocked by a service cart. Christina stands beside it, restocking napkins with unnecessary thoroughness. "Excuse me," Grace says politely. "Could I get by?" Christina looks up with false surprise. "Oh, bathroom break already. We just started service. I have a medical condition." "Everyone has a medical condition at altitude," Christina interrupts. "Air pressure affects everyone." She makes no move to clear the aisle. Grace stands beside her seat, increasingly desperate, while other passengers pretend not to see her distress. "Please," Grace says, the word costing her dignity. "I really need to get by." Christina sighs theatrically. "I suppose we can make an exception, but the cart will need to be moved back into position afterward. It's going to delay service for the entire cabin." She announces this loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. The implication is clear. This old woman's needs are disrupting everyone else's comfort. Grace makes her way to the bathroom with burning cheeks and trembling hands. Behind her, she hears muttered complaints about difficult passengers and people who don't understand airline procedures. When she returns, the service cart is positioned exactly where it was before, blocking her access to her seat. "Excuse me," she says again. Christina doesn't look up from her clipboard. "Service is in progress. You'll need to wait." Grace stands in the narrow aisle for 10 minutes while Christina completes tasks that could have been finished in 2. Other passengers squeeze past her, some apologetic, others annoyed. She's a human obstacle, a source of inconvenience, a problem to be managed rather than a person to be served. Samuel watches every moment of his wife's humiliation with the helpless rage of a man who's spent 74 years learning to control his anger. His hands clench and unclench. His breathing deepens. Every instinct screams at him to intervene, to protect her, to demand the basic respect she deserves. But he knows that script too. The angry black man, the threatening presence, the justification for escalation that will only make things worse. So he sits and watches his wife's dignity being stripped away piece by piece, knowing that his intervention will be used as evidence of everything they already believe about people who look like him. The baby in his row starts crying again. The mother looks at him apologetically. "It's okay," Samuel says gently. "Babies cry. It's what they do." But inside he understands exactly how that baby feels. Maria Fernandez cannot stay silent anymore. From her position near the galley, she's watched Christina's performance with growing disgust. The deliberate cruelty, the manufactured delays, the casual dehumanization of two elderly passengers whose only crime was trusting in basic decency. She pulls out her phone and opens TikTok. Her followers know her as a cheerful ground crew supervisor who posts funny airline behind-the-scenes content. Today's video will be different. Day 847 working for Skyline Airlines, she says into her camera, keeping her voice low. And today, I'm witnessing something that needs to be documented. An elderly African-American couple with valid first-class tickets being harassed by crew members who decided they don't belong. She pans the camera carefully, capturing Grace standing in the aisle, while Christina deliberately delays clearing her path. The audio picks up Christina's loud sighing, her exaggerated movements, her pointed comments about difficult passengers. This is what institutional prejudice looks like in real time, Maria continues. Not cross-burnings or obvious slurs. Just ordinary people using their tiny bit of power to make other people's lives miserable. She posts the video with hashtags Elderly Dignity Matters, Airline Discrimination, Skyline Shame, Treat Everyone Human. Within minutes, the video starts gaining traction. Comments pour in. This is heartbreaking. Where are the other passengers? I can't believe this is happening in 2024. Name and shame. This crew should be fired. Those could be anyone's grandparents. Dr. Elena Vasquez has been monitoring Grace's condition from her first-class seat. As an emergency room physician, she recognizes stress-induced medical episodes. Grace is showing multiple warning signs: shallow breathing, trembling hands, glazed expression, difficulty focusing. She unbuckles her seatbelt and moves toward the back of the plane, ignoring the meal service preparations. "Ma'am," she addresses Grace directly. "I'm Dr. Vasquez. Are you feeling all right?" Grace looks up with surprise and gratitude. A stranger showing concern when officials show only contempt. I'm having some difficulty with my blood pressure. I need to take my medication, but I wasn't able to get water." Dr. Vasquez's expression hardens. "You were denied water for medication. They said it wasn't time for service yet." Christina appears beside them, her authority threatened by outside intervention. "Excuse me, ma'am, but you need to return to your seat. We're preparing for meal service." "I'm a physician," Dr. Vasquez replies evenly. "This passenger is showing signs of medical distress. She's fine. People exaggerate medical conditions to get special treatment all the time. Are you medically qualified to make that assessment?" The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Around them, other passengers lean in, sensing confrontation. Several have their phones out now, recording openly. Christina's face flushes red. "I'm a trained professional with 12 years of experience in medical diagnosis in passenger services." Dr. Vasquez turns back to Grace. "What medications are you taking? Lisinopril for blood pressure, metformin for diabetes. Both were supposed to be taken an hour ago." Dr. Vasquez looks directly at Christina. This passenger needs water immediately, and she should not be separated from her husband given her medical conditions. "The seating assignments are final," Christina snaps. "I don't care who you think you are. I think I'm a doctor watching a flight attendant endanger a passenger's health through deliberate neglect." The words carry through the cabin with surgical precision. Other passengers murmur among themselves. The dynamics are shifting slowly but perceptibly. Jessica Morales approaches with a cup of water, her face flushed with shame and determination. "Here you go, ma'am, for your medication." Christina whirls on her. "I didn't authorize that." "She's a diabetic with blood pressure issues," Jessica responds quietly. Authorization shouldn't be necessary. It's a moment of moral courage that surprises everyone, including Jessica herself. She's watched Christina's bullying for months without speaking up. Today, something inside her finally breaks. Grace takes her medication with trembling hands, the water like salvation after drought. "Thank you," she whispers to both Jessica and Dr. Vasquez. But Christina isn't finished. Her authority has been challenged publicly, and that cannot stand. There seems to be some confusion about airline policies she announces loudly enough for half the cabin to hear. Some passengers think medical conditions entitle them to special treatment beyond what they've paid for. The implication is clear and ugly. Grace closes her eyes, weathering another wave of humiliation. Samuel has heard enough. He unbuckles his seatbelt and stands his 6-foot frame, commanding attention despite his age. "Ma'am," he addresses Christina directly, his voice carrying the authority of 45 years, supervising postal operations. "My wife is not asking for special treatment. She's asking for basic human decency." There's a difference. Christina's smile turns predatory. "Sir, you need to remain seated. My wife needs medical attention. Your wife is getting medical attention from a qualified physician. She doesn't need intervention from you." The words are calculated to provoke exactly the response Christina wants. The protective husband losing his temper. The angry black man justifying everything she's already decided about him. But Samuel Davis has survived 74 years without giving bigots the satisfaction of confirming their prejudices. "You're right," he says calmly, sitting back down. "She's in good hands." Christina's disappointment is visible. She'd hoped for escalation, for justification, for the dramatic confrontation that would paint her as the victim and them as the aggressors. Instead, she's left with a cabin full of passengers who've watched her torment elderly people for sport and a growing collection of phone videos that will follow her long after this flight lands. Grace Davis learned about dignity from her grandmother, born in 1903, to sharecroppers who owned nothing but their integrity. Baby girl Grandma Rose used to say, "They can take your money, your home, even your freedom. But your dignity lives inside where they can't reach. Don't you ever let them convince you to give it away." Sitting in 34F with her blood pressure medication finally working and her breathing slowly returning to normal, Grace holds tight to that inheritance. Around her, the cabin buzzes with uncomfortable energy as passengers process what they've witnessed. She closes her eyes and whispers words that have sustained her through every crisis. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." Psalm 51:10. 2 rows back. Samuel draws on his own reserves of strength. His father had been a veteran of World War II, a man who'd fought for a country that wouldn't let him vote when he returned home. "Son," he'd said during Samuel's teenage years when anger threatened to consume him, "righteous anger is fuel. But don't let it become fire. Use it to build something better." Samuel had channeled that fuel into steady work, faithful marriage children raised with values that transcended circumstances. He'd supervised postal workers of every race and background, earning respect through consistency rather than confrontation. Now watching his wife's quiet strength in the face of deliberate cruelty, he understands that their greatest victory isn't fighting back. It's refusing to become less than who they are regardless of how they're treated. The teenager beside Grace removes his headphones and offers her a pack of crackers from his carry-on bag. "My grandma always said crackers help when you're not feeling good." Grace smiles with genuine warmth. "That's very kind of you, honey. Your grandma raised you right?" It's a moment of human connection that transcends the ugliness around them. Kindness offered freely without agenda or expectation. The way the world is supposed to work. In first class, Dr. Vasquez returns to her seat, but keeps glancing back toward Grace. Her medical training compels her to monitor patients in distress. but her human conscience compels her to witness injustice being served with peanuts and false smiles. She pulls out her phone and begins typing, currently on Skyline Flight 447, watching harassment of elderly passengers by crew. As a physician, I'm documenting medical neglect and institutional prejudice. This should not happen to anyone's grandparents. She posts to Twitter with her verification as an emergency room doctor, lending credibility to her account. The post begins gathering retweets immediately. Meanwhile, 30,000 feet below them, Marcus Davis's private jet has landed at Phoenix Sky Harbor. He checks his phone as the aircraft taxis to the Atlantic Aviation private terminal. Still no response from his parents. They must be in the air by now, he thinks, looking at his watch. Flight 447 departed on time according to the Skyline app. He has no idea that his parents are currently living through the worst travel experience of their lives, or that their treatment is being documented by strangers who understand that some injustices are too important to ignore. In the main cabin of Flight 447, the meal service begins with the artificial cheerfulness that masks authentic contempt. Christina serves first class with exaggerated attention, making sure economy passengers can see the difference in treatment. When the service reaches Grace's row, Christina bypasses her entirely, serving the passengers on either side with theatrical politeness. "Excuse me," Grace says softly. "Could I have a meal, please?" Christina turns with manufactured surprise. "Oh, I'm sorry, did you pay for the meal service?" It's another lie. Meals are included in all fares on cross-country flights, but Christina delivers it with such authority that other passengers believe it might be true. I thought meals were included," Grace responds uncertainly. "Premium meals are included. Basic economy meals are available for purchase." Grace opens her purse with shaking hands, looking for her credit card. The humiliation of paying for something that should be free pales beside the hunger and the public spectacle of her confusion. Jessica Morales appears beside Christina with a meal tray. "All meals are complimentary on flights over 3 hours," she says firmly. "Company policy." She serves Grace with the same attention she'd given first-class passengers, ignoring Christina's furious glare. It's another act of quiet rebellion, another crack in the foundation of institutional cruelty, and another moment being captured by passengers who understand they're witnessing something that needs to be remembered. 2 hours into Flight 447, Christina Rodriguez makes the decision that will end her career. The small acts of cruelty aren't providing enough satisfaction. The viral videos are gaining traction. Passengers are starting to openly support the elderly couple she's marked for humiliation. It's time for escalation. She approaches Rebecca Stone via text message. Passenger situation escalating. May need security intervention upon landing. Rebecca responds immediately. Elaborate. What type of situation? Christina types, carefully crafting her narrative. Male passenger becoming agitated about seating assignment, making threatening statements. Female passenger claiming medical emergency to manipulate staff. Concerned about flight safety. Every word is calculated. Threatening statements that never happened. Manipulate staff to describe someone taking prescribed medication. Flight safety to justify any response that follows. Rebecca's reply comes quickly. Document everything. I'll coordinate with Atlanta security. Christina smiles with satisfaction. The bureaucracy of justification is now in motion. Whatever happens next can be blamed on passenger aggression and safety protocols. She approaches Samuel's row with Tyler Mitchell trailing reluctantly behind her. The baby nearby has finally stopped crying, sleeping peacefully against its mother's chest. The cabin hums with the quiet energy of people settling in for a long flight. Sir Christina addresses Samuel with official authority. I need you to come with me to discuss your behavior. Samuel looks up from his book with genuine confusion. My behavior. Multiple passengers have complained about your aggressive demeanor. I need to address this before it becomes a safety issue. The lie is so audacious, so completely disconnected from reality that Samuel doesn't immediately respond. Around him, passengers who've witnessed the entire encounter listen with growing incredulity. What aggressive behavior, Samuel asks calmly. Standing up without permission. Raising your voice to crew members. Making intimidating statements. Each accusation is a twist of reality designed to paint Samuel as the aggressor. Standing up to check on his wife becomes without permission. Speaking clearly becomes raising his voice. Requesting basic respect becomes intimidating statements. Dr. Vasquez unbuckles her seatbelt again. She's watched this drama unfold from the beginning, and she recognizes gaslighting when she sees it. "I've been monitoring this situation for 2 hours," she announces loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "That gentleman has been nothing but polite and respectful. Your accusations are completely false." Christina whirls on her. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. This doesn't concern you. A passenger being falsely accused of aggressive behavior concerns everyone on this aircraft. The cabin is electric now. Passengers lean forward, sensing major confrontation. Phones appear, cameras focus, social media posts begin in real time. Tyler Mitchell shifts uncomfortably beside Christina. He's watched Samuel for 2 hours. The man hasn't raised his voice, hasn't made threats, hasn't done anything except exist while black and married to someone Christina decided to target. Sir Tyler addresses Samuel directly, his voice thick with guilt. "Have you made any statements that could be interpreted as threatening?" It's a question designed to give Samuel an opportunity to defend himself. Tyler's small act of fairness in an environment of orchestrated cruelty. No, Samuel replies simply. "I asked if my wife could have water for her medication. I asked if we could sit together because of her medical conditions. That's the extent of my aggressive behavior." The words land with devastating accuracy. Around them, passengers murmur among themselves. The narrative Christina's trying to construct is collapsing under the weight of witnessed truth. But Christina isn't finished. She's committed to this course of action, and retreat isn't possible. "Sir, I'm going to need you to move to the front of the aircraft where we can better monitor the situation." "What situation?" Samuel asks. "The situation you've created through your behavior. It's circular logic designed to confuse and intimidate. But Samuel Davis has spent 45 years dealing with bureaucrats who use authority as a weapon. He recognizes the playbook. "I'll move wherever you want me to move," he says calmly. "But I'd like the record to show that I've done nothing wrong, and this appears to be retaliation for requesting basic courtesy." The precision of his response catches Christina off guard. She expected anger defensiveness, the kind of reaction that would justify her narrative. Instead, she's facing someone who understands exactly what's happening and refuses to cooperate with his own demonization. The record, Christina says with false authority, will show that a passenger became agitated and required intervention. The record, Dr. Vasquez interjects, will show that a crew member harassed elderly passengers and then fabricated safety concerns when witnesses started documenting her behavior. The battle lines are drawn now. Christina and her manufactured crisis on one side. Samuel Dr. Vasquez and growing passenger support on the other. And 30 million TikTok views waiting to see who truth and justice really serve. Grace watches from her seat with the sick understanding that her husband is being transformed from victim to villain before her eyes. She's seen this script too many times. The gentle black man recast as threatening. The quiet dignity reframed as suspicious behavior. She stands carefully, her arthritis protesting, and makes her way toward the confrontation. "Ma'am," Tyler says quickly. "Please remain seated." "That's my husband," Grace replies with the authority of 52 years of marriage. "If he's supposedly threatening, then I should be afraid of him, shouldn't I?" "Do I look afraid to you?" The question is devastatingly effective. Grace approaches Samuel without hesitation, takes his arm with obvious affection, and stands beside him with the fearless support of a wife who knows her husband's character. "If he's dangerous," she continues, "why am I holding his hand instead of calling for help?" Christina's narrative crumbles completely. You can't claim a man is threatening when his elderly wife clings to him for comfort rather than protection from him. The cabin falls silent except for the engine noise and the quiet clicking of phone cameras documenting the moment truth stands up to power and refuses to back down. Maria Fernandez's TikTok video has exploded beyond her wildest imagination. In 3 hours, Elderly Dignity Matters has accumulated 2.3 million views, 847,000 shares, and 156,000 comments. The story is spreading faster than she can track. Her phone buzzes constantly with notifications. Reporter Jenkins has shared your video. Civil Rights Law has tagged you in a post. Airline Transparency wants to interview you. The comments section tells its own story. This is exactly what happened to my grandfather in 1962. Same script, different decade. I work for an airline and this behavior is not normal. Someone needs to be fired. Those could be my grandparents. This is heartbreaking. Name and shame. What's the flight number? What's the crew's names? But it's not just Maria's video anymore. Dr. Vasquez's Twitter thread has been retweeted 47,000 times by verified accounts, including journalists, civil rights lawyers, and celebrities. Jessica Morales has started posting from her crew account, risking her job to document what she's witnessing. Most powerfully, other passengers are recording from multiple angles. Samuel and Grace's confrontation with Christina is being captured by 6 different cameras, simultaneously creating a documentary record that can't be disputed or dismissed. Passenger rights posts Flight 447 Skyline Airlines. Real-time documentation of crew harassing elderly passengers. This is why we need federal passenger protection laws. TMZ reposts Maria's original video discrimination at 30,000 feet. Elderly couple humiliated by airline staff. Shocking footage inside. The Shade Room adds commentary, the audacity. In 2024. Watch how this crew treats these grandparents and tell me we don't still have work to do. In Seat 12C, passenger Jonathan Weber, a documentary filmmaker traveling to Atlanta for a film festival, has been recording everything with professional equipment. His camera captured Christina's false accusations, Samuel's dignified responses, Grace's medical distress, and the growing passenger revolt. He uploads a carefully edited 2-minute sequence to YouTube with the title, Airline Crew Targets Elderly Black Couple. Full documentation. Within an hour, it has 890,000 views and climbing. The comments are brutal. Fire every single crew member involved. This is why people don't trust airlines anymore. Lawsuit incoming. As it should be. Those crew members just ended their own careers. Back in Phoenix, Marcus Davis's assistant, Amanda Rodriguez, calls him urgently. Marcus, you need to see this. There's a viral video about an elderly couple being mistreated on a Skyline flight. The passengers look like your parents. Marcus pulls up the video on his phone and his blood runs cold. There's his father standing with quiet dignity while a flight attendant accuses him of threatening behavior. There's his mother clutching her medication bottle with shaking hands. His parents, on his airline, being humiliated by his employees. What flight? He asks, his voice deadly calm. Flight 447 Phoenix to Atlanta. Departed 2 hours ago. Marcus checks the manifest on his phone. Samuel and Grace Davis, seats 2A and 2B, first-class tickets he personally arranged through his corporate account. They're listed in first class, he says, confused. Sir, the video shows them in economy. Separated, being denied basic service. Marcus stares at his phone screen, watching his father accused of being threatening, and his mother denied water for her medication. Rage builds in his chest like pressure behind a dam about to burst. Get me the pilot of Flight 447 immediately, he orders. And prepare the corporate jet. I'm flying to Atlanta right now. Sir, should I contact Skyline Management number? I am Skyline Management. And someone is about to discover exactly what that means. Meanwhile, on Flight 447, the viral momentum is reaching critical mass. Passengers are discovering that their fellow travelers are documenting airline abuse in real time, and the energy is shifting from uncomfortable observation to active solidarity. A passenger in seat 23A, retired teacher Margaret Phillips, stands up and addresses the cabin directly. "I've been teaching for 35 years, she announces. "I know what bullying looks like. And I know that silence makes us all accomplices. What's happening to this couple is wrong, and we all see it." Her words trigger something powerful. Other passengers begin standing, showing support through visible solidarity. An elderly white man in 14B makes his way to Samuel and Grace. "Son," he addresses Samuel. "I'm a Korean War veteran. I've seen good men face down bigger enemies than this. You've got support here." A Hispanic woman in 28C approaches Grace. "Mama, I'm a nurse. Are you feeling okay? Do you need medical attention?" The cabin transforms from uncomfortable silent observation to active community support. Christina watches her authority dissolve as passengers reject the narrative she's tried to construct. Tyler Mitchell realizes his career is ending one way or another. He can go down with Christina's sinking ship, or he can salvage some dignity by choosing truth over complicity. He pulls out his own phone and starts recording. This is Tyler Mitchell, Skyline Airlines flight attendant. What you've seen in other videos is accurate. These passengers have been mistreated, and I was complicit through my silence. They deserve better. Everyone deserves better. It's the moment the dam finally breaks. When even crew members start documenting the abuse, the institutional protection disappears entirely. Christina Rodriguez stands alone in the aisle, surrounded by cameras, witnesses, and the viral evidence of her own cruelty. Her 12-year career is ending in real time, broadcast to millions of people who now know exactly who she is and what she's done. But she doesn't know yet that the son of the couple she's been tormenting owns the airline that employs her, and he's currently 39,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, flying to Atlanta to personally deliver the consequences of her choices. The cabin of Flight 447 has become a powder keg of moral tension. 23 different phone cameras are now recording. Dr. Vasquez has moved to sit beside Grace, monitoring her blood pressure with a portable cuff from her medical bag. Tyler Mitchell has joined the passenger revolt, documenting his own crew's misconduct. And Christina Rodriguez has decided that if her career is ending anyway, she's going to go down fighting. "This has gone far enough," she announces to the cabin, her voice shaking with desperate authority. "I'm declaring this a security situation. Federal regulations give me the authority to restrain disruptive passengers." Samuel looks at her with the patient sadness of a man who's seen this movie too many times. "Ma'am," he says quietly, "I'm 74 years old. I'm holding my wife's hand. The most disruptive thing I've done today is exist in a space where you decided I don't belong." The words land with surgical precision. Around them, passengers murmur agreement. The narrative Christina's trying to construct is so obviously false that it insults everyone's intelligence. But desperation makes people dangerous. "Sir, I'm ordering you to move to the front of the aircraft where you can be properly monitored. And if I refuse, then you'll be arrested upon landing for interfering with a flight crew. It's the nuclear option, the threat that's supposed to end all resistance. But Samuel Davis has lived through worse threats than unemployment and arrest." "Then I guess I'll be arrested," he says calmly, "because I'm not going anywhere without my wife." Grace squeezes his hand, her voice thick with emotion. 52 years, she whispers. "We've been together 52 years. We've never been separated by choice, and we're not starting now." The words hit the cabin like an emotional bomb. Passengers who've watched this elderly couple's dignity being destroyed for 3 hours finally understand the full scope of the cruelty they're witnessing. Margaret Phillips. The retired teacher stands up again. "I've had enough," she announces. This woman, she points at Christina, has spent 3 hours torturing 2 people whose only crime was buying airplane tickets while black. and now she's threatening them with arrest for the crime of loving each other. Her words trigger something primal. Other passengers begin standing, not just documenting now, but actively intervening. "This is wrong," calls out the Korean War veteran. "They haven't done anything," adds the Hispanic nurse. "We're all witnesses," declares Jonathan Weber, the filmmaker. Everything is documented. Christina realizes she's losing control entirely. Her authority is dissolving in real-time, broadcast live to millions of viewers. She makes one final desperate play. "Fine," she snaps. "If you want to support disruptive passengers over airline crew, then you can all explain it to federal marshals in Atlanta." She pulls out the aircraft phone and dials the cockpit. "Captain Palmer, this is Rodriguez. We have multiple passengers interfering with crew operations. I'm requesting law enforcement meet the aircraft in Atlanta." In the cockpit, Captain Jake Palmer, a 22-year veteran who's watched Christina's patterns of abuse for months without intervening, faces his own moment of reckoning. What exactly are the passengers doing, Christina? Refusing to comply with crew instructions, creating a disturbance, supporting aggressive behavior. Palmer checks the security cameras that monitor the main cabin. He sees an elderly black couple holding hands while surrounded by supportive passengers. He sees Tyler Mitchell recording his own crew's misconduct. He sees no aggression, no threats, no disturbance beyond people refusing to accept cruelty as normal. Christina Palmer says carefully, "What I see on the security monitor doesn't match your description, Captain. I'm telling you we have a security situation. What I have." Palmer interrupts is a crew member who appears to be harassing passengers and then fabricating security concerns when called out for it. The captain's words echo through the cabin via the open phone line. Christina realizes that even her last institutional ally has abandoned her. Dr. Vasquez takes the opportunity to address Palmer directly. "Captain, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez in seat 1C. I'm an emergency room physician, and I've been documenting medical neglect and harassment of elderly passengers by your crew. What's happening here isn't a security issue, it's a humanitarian crisis." Palmer's voice comes back grim and decisive. "Dr. Vasquez, thank you for the clarification. Christina, return to your station. Service the passengers professionally. We'll discuss this situation on the ground. It's over. Christina's authority is gone. Her narrative is exposed. Her career is finished." She stands alone in the aisle, surrounded by cameras and witnesses with nowhere left to run. Samuel Davis looks at his wife with infinite tenderness. "You okay, baby?" Grace nods, tears finally flowing freely. Not from sadness, but from relief. From gratitude. From the overwhelming emotion of watching strangers choose courage over comfort to stand with them in their moment of need. "I'm proud of you," she whispers to Samuel. "Proud of how you handled this. Proud of who you are." Around them, passengers begin to applaud. Not celebration, but recognition. Two people who refused to surrender their dignity even when the entire airline apparatus was designed to strip it away. Two people who showed everyone else what quiet strength looks like under pressure. But the story isn't over yet. 39,000 feet above the Missouri River, Marcus Davis's private jet races toward Atlanta at maximum speed. The billionaire CEO of Atlantic Aviation Group has spent the last hour watching viral videos of his parents being humiliated by his own employees. His phone shows 847 missed calls from Skyline management, desperate to explain and apologize before their boss arrives in Atlanta with the fury of a son whose family has been attacked. They're too late for explanations. Marcus Davis is coming to collect what's owed. The Gulfstream G650 touches down at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with the precision of controlled fury. Marcus Davis unbuckles his seatbelt before the aircraft stops rolling. His jaw tight with the kind of anger that doesn't explode, it calculates. For 3 hours, he's watched viral videos of his parents being humiliated. His father accused of threatening behavior for asking for basic respect. His mother denied water for her medication. Both of them separated and degraded by employees of an airline he owns. His phone buzzes constantly with damage control calls from Skyline management. He ignores them all. "Sir," his pilot announces, "we're cleared to the Atlantic Aviation Terminal." No Marcus replies, his voice deadly calm. "Take me to the main terminal, gate A12. I want to meet flight 447 when it arrives." Marcus Davis built Atlantic Aviation Group from a single leased Cessna into a $4.2 billion empire. He owns controlling interests in 6 regional airlines, including Skyline. He employs 47,000 people across 3 continents. But all of that success means nothing if he can't protect the 2 people who made it possible. Samuel and Grace Davis had mortgaged their house to give him startup capital when banks wouldn't loan to a young black entrepreneur. They'd supported every risk, celebrated every victory, provided the foundation of love and values that shaped him into a man worth following. And now his employees, people whose paychecks depend on his decisions, have treated his parents like criminals for the crime of flying while elderly and black. The corporate jet taxis to the main terminal as Marcus reviews the situation on his phone. The viral videos have exploded beyond social media into mainstream news. CNN is running the story. The Washington Post has picked it up. The New York Times is calling for comment. Elderly dignity. Matters is trending worldwide with 7.4 million interactions. The story has become a symbol of everything wrong with corporate culture and institutional prejudice. But Marcus isn't interested in symbols. He's interested in justice. His phone rings. Again. This time it's David Harrison, CEO of Skyline Airlines, the man Marcus personally hired to run daily operations. Marcus answers on the first ring. "David." "Marcus, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. We have a situation." "We have a situation." Marcus interrupts, his voice like ice. "Where your employees humiliated my parents for 3 hours while I was in the air watching it happen in real time." Silence on the other end. Harrison is calculating, trying to find words that might salvage his career. "Marcus, I want you to know that this doesn't represent our values. It represents exactly your values. Your crew, your training, your culture, your responsibility. We're conducting a full investigation. The investigation is over. I watched it happen. The world watched it happen. The only question now is consequences." Marcus ends the call and strides through the terminal with the focused intensity of a man who's moved beyond anger into action. He's dressed casually, jeans, polo shirt, leather jacket, looking like any other passenger meeting a flight. But appearances can be deceiving. Flight 447 is scheduled to arrive at Gate A12 in 17 minutes. Marcus positions himself where he can see passengers exit, waiting for the moment when his parents emerge from what should have been a routine flight but became a 3-hour torture session. His phone buzzes with a text from his assistant. Media is gathering outside Atlantic Aviation headquarters. "How should I respond?" Marcus types back. "No comment until after I speak with my parents. Because this isn't about corporate crisis management or public relations strategy. It's about 2 70-something grandparents who trusted their son's airline to treat them with basic human dignity and got cruelty instead." The gate agent at A12 recognizes Marcus as he approaches. Sandra Kim has worked Skyline gates for 8 years and knows the Atlantic Aviation executive hierarchy by sight. "Mr. Davis," she says, nervously. "I wasn't expecting Flight 447. Marcus says simply, "My parents are on that flight. I understand there were some issues during the journey." Sandra's face goes pale. She's seen the viral videos. She knows what issues means, And she knows that the CEO of the parent company is standing in front of her asking about it in a tone that could freeze hellfire. "Sir, I should mention that we've received some reports about crew conduct. Internal investigation has already begun. Where's the crew roster for that flight?" Sandra hesitates. Company policy prevents sharing crew information with passengers. But this isn't exactly a passenger. This is the man who signs her ultimate boss's paycheck. She prints the roster and hands it over. Marcus scans the names. Captain Jake Palmer, First Officer David Martinez, Senior Flight Attendant Christina Rodriguez, Flight Attendants Tyler Mitchell, Jessica Morales. He memorizes every name. 3 hours from now, some of these people will still have jobs. Some won't. "Is there a problem?" Mr. Davis, Sandra asks carefully. Marcus looks at her with the expression of a man who spent 3 hours watching his parents be dehumanized. "Sandra," he says quietly, "you're about to witness the consequences of forgetting that every passenger is someone's family." Marcus doesn't wait for Flight 447 to arrive. He uses his executive access to pull real-time flight data security footage and passenger manifests. What he discovers makes his blood boil with contained fury. His parents were originally booked in seats 2A and 2B first-class tickets he personally arranged through his corporate account. The manifest shows the original booking, then subsequent changes made by crew members moving Samuel and Grace to separated economy seats with no documented justification. The security footage from the gate area shows Christina Rodriguez deliberately tearing up valid boarding passes and issuing new ones. It shows Rebecca Stone arriving to support Christina's false narrative. It shows his parents standing together with quiet dignity while being publicly humiliated. But it's the audio that truly reveals the scope of the abuse. Marcus has access to cabin recordings that capture every word of Christina's harassment, Tyler's complicity, and the passengers who eventually stood up for his parents. He calls his head of legal affairs directly. "Jennifer, it's Marcus. I need a full legal team at Hartsfield-Jackson in 2 hours. What's the situation? Employee misconduct, discrimination, medical neglect, possibly criminal harassment. I want every option on the table. How serious are we talking?" Marcus watches security footage of his mother being denied water for her blood pressure medication while his father is falsely accused of threatening behavior, career-ending serious, potentially company-threatening serious. I want these people removed from any position where they can hurt passengers, and I want it done tonight. He hangs up and calls David Harrison again. "David, I'm reviewing the security footage from Flight 447. Marcus, let me explain. Explain why Christina Rodriguez has a pattern of passenger complaints that were never investigated. Explain why Tyler Mitchell was never disciplined despite multiple incidents. Explain why Rebecca Stone supported false allegations against passengers with valid tickets." Harrison's silence tells Marcus everything he needs to know. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern of behavior that management has ignored because it was easier than addressing. "How long has this been happening?" Marcus asks. There have been some complaints, but nothing that rose to the level of viral videos and federal discrimination lawsuits. Marcus, we can handle this internally. Discipline the crew, retrain everyone, implement new policies. The crew will be terminated. Tonight, before they leave the airport. That seems extreme. What's extreme is my 74-year-old father being accused of threatening behavior for asking why his wife can't get water for her medication. What's extreme is my parents being separated and humiliated for sport. What's extreme is that you've allowed this culture to fester for so long that crew members think they can abuse passengers without consequences. Marcus ends the call and reviews the passenger videos that have flooded social media. Dr. Vasquez's medical documentation of his mother's distress. Maria Fernandez risking her job to document abuse. Tyler Mitchell eventually choosing truth over complicity. Some of these people will be rewarded for their courage. Others will face consequences that match the severity of their choices. Flight 447 appears on the arrival board on time, Gate A12. Marcus positions himself where his parents will see him immediately upon deplaning. After 3 hours of humiliation, the first face they see should be filled with love, not institutional authority. But justice will follow close behind. Flight 447 taxis to Gate A12 with the weight of viral infamy following it like a contrail. Inside the cabin, Cristina Rodriguez prepares for deplaning with the desperate energy of someone trying to control a narrative that's already escaped her grasp. She's spent the last hour watching her phone explode with notifications. Her full name is trending on Twitter. Her photo has been identified and shared millions of times. Employment lawyers are offering their services in her mentions, understanding that her career is over and litigation is inevitable. But Cristina has one last card to play getting off the aircraft before facing consequences. If she can reach the terminal blend into the crowd, disappear until the immediate storm passes, maybe she can salvage something from the wreckage of her 12-year career. Tyler Mitchell has chosen a different path. He sits in the crew area, documenting everything he's witnessed, preparing a full report that will destroy his own career, but might prevent future passengers from experiencing what Samuel and Grace endured. "Cristina," he says quietly, "we need to talk about what happened today." "What happened," Cristina snaps, "is that we followed standard procedures with difficult passengers and social media blew it out of proportion. We separated an elderly couple for no legitimate reason. We denied medical care. We fabricated security concerns. That's not standard procedure, that's actionable discrimination." Cristina's facade finally cracks. "You think I did something wrong? You think I'm the problem here? I think we both made choices today that we'll have to live with for the rest of our lives." Tyler's words hang in the air between them. The moral clarity of someone who's chosen truth over self-preservation. Meanwhile, in the main cabin, Samuel and Grace Davis prepare to deplane with the exhausted relief of survivors. The past 3 hours have aged them both, but they've maintained their dignity through assault designed to strip it away. Dr. Vasquez has stayed beside Grace for the remainder of the flight, monitoring her blood pressure and providing the medical attention that crew members denied. Her final reading shows elevated but stable numbers, concerning but not immediately dangerous. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Vasquez asks. Tired, Grace admits. "Sad, but not broken. It takes more than small minds with small power to break what my grandmother built inside me." Samuel overhears and takes his wife's hand. "Grandma Rose would be proud of how you handled yourself today." Around them, passengers prepare to deplane with the uncomfortable knowledge that they've witnessed something significant. Some will return to their lives and never think about Flight 447 again. Others will carry the memory of 2 elderly people facing cruelty with unshakable dignity, and it will change how they respond when they witness injustice in the future. Maria Fernandez has spent the flight responding to interview requests from major news outlets. Her original TikTok video has been viewed 12.7 million times. Producers from CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News want her story. Civil rights organizations are offering legal support if she faces retaliation. But Maria isn't thinking about media attention. She's thinking about the elderly couple who reminded her that some things are worth risking your job to document. The aircraft door opens, and passengers begin deplaning in the usual chaotic order of people eager to escape confined spaces. First class exits, first followed by passengers row by row toward the back where Samuel and Grace wait. Cristina Rodriguez is among the first off the aircraft. She strides through the jet bridge with forced confidence, phone pressed to her ear, speaking to someone about legal representation and wrongful termination suits. She emerges into the gate area and freezes. Standing directly in front of the gate, wearing jeans and a polo shirt, is a man she doesn't recognize but somehow seems familiar. He's tall, well-dressed, despite the casual clothing with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Marcus Davis looks at Christina Rodriguez with the controlled fury of a son watching his parents' tormentor emerge from the scene of their humiliation. "Ms. Rodriguez," he says calmly, "we need to talk." Christina's confusion is evident. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "You know my parents, Samuel and Grace Davis. You spent 3 hours teaching them that their dignity doesn't matter to Skyline Airlines." The words hit Christina like cold water. She scans Marcus's face, looking for the resemblance she missed seeing Samuel's eyes and Grace's cheekbones in features she failed to recognize. "I don't understand," she says weakly. "My name is Marcus Davis. I'm the CEO and majority owner of Atlantic Aviation Group, which makes me your ultimate boss, which makes your treatment of my parents a personal matter that's about to become a professional catastrophe." Christina's world tilts off its axis. The passenger she thought she could abuse with impunity is the son of the man who controls her livelihood. The elderly couple she marked for humiliation has a billionaire son who watched every moment of their mistreatment via viral video. Around them, other passengers recognize Marcus from business magazines and news coverage. Phones appear, cameras focus. The moment is being documented in real time. "Mr. Davis," Christina stammers. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Marcus replies, his voice carrying across the gate area, "is that you thought there would be no consequences for abusing passengers under my airline's name?" Behind Christina, Tyler Mitchell emerges from the jet bridge and immediately understands the situation. The casual passenger waiting at the gate is Marcus Davis, Atlantic Aviation CEO, whose parents Tyler helped humiliate for 3 hours. Tyler approaches with the resignation of someone who's already accepted the inevitable. "Mr. Davis," he says quietly, "I need you to know that what happened today was wrong. I was complicit, and I take full responsibility for my actions." Marcus looks at Tyler with something approaching respect. Not forgiveness, but recognition of someone choosing accountability over deflection. "We'll address your role separately," Marcus says. "Right now, I'm focused on seeing my parents and ensuring they receive the apology they deserve." Christina realizes her final escape route has closed. No crowd to disappear into, no corporate hierarchy to hide behind, no plausible deniability remaining. She stands face to face with the consequences of 3 hours of cruelty, and those consequences have a name, a face, and the power to end her career with a single decision. The gate area fills with passengers deplaning from Flight 447, many of whom recognize the viral confrontation playing out in real time. Cameras capture every moment as the architect of an elderly couple's humiliation faces the judgment of their son. And from the jet bridge, Samuel and Grace Davis emerge together hand in hand, about to discover that their son witnessed every moment of their ordeal and flew across the country to deliver justice personally. Samuel and Grace Davis emerge from the jet bridge expecting to find their son waiting with his usual warm smile and gentle hug. Instead, they find Marcus standing in the gate area with the controlled intensity of a man dispensing justice in real time. Marcus Grace calls out, confused by the tension crackling through the air around him. Marcus turns at his mother's voice and his expression immediately softens. The CEO disappears, replaced by a son who's watched his parents suffer for 3 hours and can finally hold them again. "Mom. Dad." He embraces them both, his arms protective and fierce. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "We're fine, baby," Grace says, though her voice trembles with exhaustion. "It was just a rough flight." Marcus looks at his father over his mother's shoulder. Samuel's eyes tell the story, tired, hurt, but unbroken. The quiet dignity intact despite assault. "I saw the videos," Marcus says quietly. "I saw everything." Samuel nods with understanding. "Then you know we handled ourselves appropriately. I know you were magnificent, both of you. I also know that what happened to you was unacceptable, and the people responsible are standing right behind you." Samuel and Grace turned to see Christina Rodriguez frozen in place, her face pale with the realization that her victim's son controls her professional fate. Tyler Mitchell stands nearby with the resigned posture of someone awaiting judgment. "You're their son," Christina says weakly. "I'm their son, Marcus confirms. "I'm also the owner of this airline, which means your treatment of my parents was both personal assault and professional misconduct." He pulls out his phone and dials security. "This is Marcus Davis, Atlantic Aviation Group. I need security at Gate A12 immediately. We have employees who need to be escorted from the premises." Christina's knees nearly buckle. "Mr. Davis, please. I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is that you thought abusing passengers would go unnoticed and unpunished." Marcus turns to his parents. "Mom, Dad, I need you to know that Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Mitchell no longer work for any company I control. Their employment was terminated the moment they decided your dignity was disposable. Son Samuel says gently, 'We don't want revenge.' This isn't revenge. It's consequences. And it's protection for every future passenger who might face what you faced if these people remain in positions of authority. Airport security arrives with the swift efficiency of professionals who understand the gravity of situations involving airline ownership." The lead officer approaches Marcus respectfully. "Mr. Davis, how can we assist?" "These individuals." Marcus indicates. "Christina and Tyler are former employees who need to be escorted from the airport. Their access badges should be deactivated immediately." Christina makes one last desperate attempt at salvage. "This is wrongful termination. I have rights. I followed company policy." Marcus looks at her with the expression of someone who's spent 3 hours reviewing security footage and audio recordings. Company policy doesn't include fabricating security threats. Company policy doesn't include denying medical care. Company policy doesn't include separating elderly couples for sport. He turns to the security officer. "Ms. Rodriguez is no longer authorized to be in any secure area of this airport. Please ensure she understands that trespassing charges will follow any future violations. The security escort begins with professional courtesy but unmistakable authority." Christina Rodriguez, 12-year veteran flight attendant, walks through the terminal under guard, while passengers she once commanded with arbitrary authority watch her career end in real time. Tyler Mitchell approaches Marcus one final time. "Mr. Davis, I know I'm fired. I know I deserve it. I just want you to know that your parents conducted themselves with more grace under pressure than anyone should have to. They're remarkable people." Marcus studies Tyler's face and sees genuine remorse alongside accountability. "Mr. Mitchell, you'll receive your termination paperwork within 24 hours. However, your acknowledgement of wrongdoing and eventual stand for truth will be noted in your personnel file. That may matter to future employers. It's not forgiveness, but it's recognition that people can choose different paths even after making terrible choices." As Tyler is escorted away, Dr. Vasquez approaches the family. "Mr. Davis, I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. I monitored your mother's medical condition during the flight. She experienced stress-induced hypertension that could have been dangerous if left untreated." Marcus's jaw tightens. "Medical neglect in addition to discrimination. I documented everything. If you pursue legal action, you'll have medical testimony supporting the severity of the crew's misconduct." Grace takes Dr. Vasquez's hands. "Doctor, thank you. In a plane full of people, you chose to care about strangers. That means everything." The gate area buzzes with passengers and bystanders documenting the conclusion of a story that captivated millions. Justice being delivered not through courts or investigations, but through immediate accountability from someone with the power to ensure consequences match actions. Marcus's phone buzzes constantly with calls from Skyline management media outlets and legal representatives. He ignores them all. Today is about family dignity and ensuring that what happened to his parents never happens to anyone else's. "Mom, Dad," he says gently, "let's go home." The corporate jet is waiting. As they walk through the terminal together, other passengers approach with words of support, apologies for not intervening sooner, and gratitude for showing them what quiet courage looks like under pressure. Samuel and Grace Davis board their son's private aircraft with their dignity intact and justice delivered. Behind them, viral videos continue spreading the story of an elderly couple who faced institutional cruelty with unwavering grace, and a son who proved that power is most meaningful when used to protect those who need it most. The Atlantic Aviation corporate jet sits on the private tarmac like a symbol of how the day should have begun, with dignity, comfort, and respect for passengers who deserve nothing less. Marcus leads his parents up the aircraft steps, his hand gentle on his mother's back as she climbs with the careful movements of someone whose arthritis has flared under stress. "This is how you should have traveled from the beginning?" Marcus says as they enter the leather-appointed cabin. "First-class tickets on my airline should mean first-class treatment, not abuse." Grace settles into the plush seat with obvious relief. After hours cramped in economy between hostile strangers, the space feels like sanctuary. Samuel sits beside her, their hands automatically finding each other after a day that tested every foundation of their 52-year marriage. Marcus Grace says gently, "We need to talk about what happened today." Marcus pours his parents water from crystal glasses, the contrast to their denied in-flight service, a painful reminder of how differently this day could have unfolded. "Mom, you don't need to relive what those people put you through. Baby, I don't want to relive it. I want to understand how it changes things moving forward." Samuel nods with the wisdom of someone who's spent 74 years learning that crisis reveals character and creates choice. "Son, what happened to us today wasn't just about us. It was about every passenger who doesn't have a billionaire child to call for justice. What are you going to do about them?" The question hits Marcus like revelation. His parents have spent the worst travel day of their lives thinking not about revenge or compensation, but about change that protects vulnerable people from what they experienced. "I'm implementing immediate policy changes," Marcus explains. "Mandatory sensitivity training for all customer-facing employees. Anonymous reporting systems for passenger mistreatment. Independent oversight of discrimination complaints." Grace leans forward with the intensity of someone who spent 35 years as a principal, understanding that policy changes without cultural transformation are just expensive paperwork. "That's good, Marcus. But what about the culture that allowed this to happen? Christina Rodriguez didn't wake up today and decide to be cruel. She's been doing this for years, and nobody stopped her." Marcus realizes his mother has identified the deeper problem. Christina's behavior wasn't an aberration, it was enabled by a management structure that tolerated abuse as long as it remained invisible. "You're right. This isn't just about individual bad actors. It's about leadership that failed to protect passengers from them." Samuel takes his son's hands. "We're proud of how you handled today. Firing those people was necessary, but the real work starts now building something better, where dignity isn't negotiable." The aircraft lifts off from Atlanta, carrying them above a city where millions of people have watched videos of their humiliation and the swift justice that followed. But for Marcus, the view from 39,000 feet provides perspective on challenges that extend far beyond one flight crew's misconduct. "Dad, how do you change a culture without destroying the good people who work within it?" Samuel smiles with the patience of someone who supervised diverse postal workers for 20 years, learning that transformation happens through example rather than mandate. "You start by making clear that dignity isn't a privilege some passengers earn, it's a right every passenger possesses. You reward the people who stood up for us today. You promote the values you want to see. And you remember that culture changes when leaders demonstrate that doing the right thing matters more than avoiding difficult conversations. Grace adds, and you remember that Maria Fernandez risked her job to document what was happening to us. Dr. Vasquez intervened when crew members failed us. Tyler Mitchell eventually chose truth over complicity. Those people deserve recognition, not just the bad actors deserve consequences. Marcus pulls out his phone and begins drafting messages to Maria Fernandez. Your courage in documenting passenger mistreatment has led to immediate policy changes. I'd like to offer you a position in our passenger advocacy department. To Dr. Vasquez. Your intervention protected my mother from medical negligence. Atlantic Aviation would be honored to have you as a consultant on passenger health protocols. To Jessica Morales. Your small acts of kindness, providing water-serving meals, showed that compassion can exist even in hostile environments. You're being promoted to training coordinator for customer service excellence. Each message represents Marcus's understanding that transformation happens when good behavior is elevated, not just when bad behavior is punished. The aircraft settles into cruise flight carrying a family whose bond has been tested and strengthened by crisis. Marcus watches his parents relax for the first time in hours, seeing the tension leave their shoulders as they realize the ordeal is truly over. I keep thinking Grace says softly about that young mother with the crying baby. How scared she looked when passengers were complaining. How grateful she was when your father helped her. Samuel nods. That's what travel should be. People helping each other instead of competing for space and service. Marcus realizes that his parents' vision extends beyond policy changes and employee training. They're imagining airline service as community rather than commerce where passengers support each other and crew members facilitate connection rather than enforce hierarchy. It's a transformation that will require more than corporate directives. It will require fundamental reimagining of what airline service can become when guided by principles of dignity, compassion, and shared humanity. You know what I learned today, Marcus says. I learned that watching your parents face injustice is the fastest way to understand what really matters in business. Profit margins don't matter if we're destroying people's dignity to achieve them. Grace smiles with maternal pride. Your father and I didn't sacrifice so you could build just another successful company. We sacrificed so you could build something that makes the world better for everyone who touches it. As the corporate jet flies through clear skies toward home, 3 generations of values align around a simple truth: power is only meaningful when it protects the powerless, and success is only sustainable when it serves something larger than itself. The videos of their mistreatment will continue spreading across social media, sparking conversations about institutional prejudice and passenger rights. But inside the quiet sanctuary of the aircraft cabin, a family plans transformation that extends far beyond viral moments into lasting change that honors every passenger's fundamental human dignity. By the time Marcus Davis's corporate jet lands at Phoenix Sky Harbor, the story of Flight 447 has exploded across every major media platform. CNN leads with airline CEO's parents humiliated by his own employees. The Washington Post features viral video exposes airline discrimination against elderly passengers. Fox News runs the headline, "Billionaire's Parents Mistreated on Flight Crew Fired Immediately." Marcus's assistant, Amanda Rodriguez, meets them at the private terminal with updates that paint the scope of public response. Sir, we've received over 400 interview requests in the past 6 hours. Every major network, 3 documentary filmmakers, and international media from 12 countries. What's the tone overwhelmingly supportive of your parents and your response? Public opinion is strongly behind immediate termination of the crew members involved. Marcus helps his parents into the waiting car, their exhaustion evident after a day that transformed a routine family visit into a national conversation about dignity and discrimination. Amanda drafts a preliminary statement. Atlantic Aviation Group takes full responsibility for the mistreatment of passengers on Flight 447. The employees involved have been terminated immediately. We're implementing comprehensive policy changes to ensure this never happens again to anyone's family. Sir Legal wants to review any public statements. Legal works for me, not the other way around. Our response will prioritize truth and accountability over liability management. The drive home passes in comfortable silence, Samuel and Grace holding hands while processing a day that aged them both but left their fundamental values intact. Marcus watches Phoenix's familiar landscape scroll past, thinking about transformation that extends beyond corporate crisis management into genuine cultural change. His phone buzzes with a call from Jennifer Martinez, his head of legal affairs. Marcus, I need to brief you on potential litigation exposure. From multiple directions. The terminated employees will likely claim wrongful termination. Civil rights organizations are reviewing federal discrimination charges, and ironically, passenger advocates are considering a class action representing everyone who's experienced similar treatment on our flights. Marcus considers the legal landscape while watching his parents rest in the back seat. Jennifer, here's our legal strategy. We're going to cooperate fully with every investigation, provide complete documentation of today's events, and accept responsibility for institutional failures that enabled this situation. That's not typically how we handle potential liability. It's how we handle accountability. If other passengers have faced similar treatment, they deserve justice and compensation. Our job is making sure it never happens again, not minimizing consequences for past failures. The conversation continues as they arrive at Samuel and Grace's modest two-story house in central Phoenix, the home where Marcus learned values that shaped him into someone capable of building billion-dollar enterprises while maintaining fundamental decency. Inside, Grace immediately moves to the kitchen to start dinner preparations. 52 years of marriage have taught her that normal routines provide stability after extraordinary stress. "Baby, you don't need to cook tonight," Samuel says gently. "I need to do something normal," Grace replies. "Something that reminds me who we are when we're not performing for cameras or defending our dignity from people who should know better." Marcus understands. His mother is reclaiming control over her environment after hours of powerlessness. The kitchen becomes sanctuary where she defines the terms of interaction. His phone rings constantly, legal counsel media relations, Skyline Management federal investigators beginning preliminary reviews. Each call represents consequences rippling outward from 3 hours of documented discrimination. But the most important call comes from Tyler Mitchell. "Mr. Davis, I know I have no right to call you directly. I just wanted you to know that I've been contacted by the Department of Transportation's Office of Aviation Enforcement and Proceedings. They're investigating discrimination complaints against Skyline. Are you cooperating with their investigation completely? I'm providing them with documentation of every incident I witnessed or participated in. Christina Rodriguez isn't an isolated case. There's a pattern of passenger mistreatment that management ignored." Marcus realizes that Tyler's cooperation might provide evidence of institutional problems extending far beyond today's viral incident. "Tyler, your willingness to document these patterns might prevent other families from experiencing what mine experienced today. Mr. Davis, I need you to understand something. Watching your parents maintain their dignity while being humiliated showed me what courage looks like. I've spent 2 years being complicit with abuse because speaking up seemed risky. Your parents showed me that silence in the face of cruelty is the real risk." After Tyler's call, Marcus joins his parents in the kitchen where Grace has prepared a simple meal of cornbread collard greens and fried chicken, comfort food that connects them to generations of family dinners that sustained them through every crisis. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asks. "Tired," Grace admits. "Sad about the state of the world, but not defeated. It takes more than small-minded people with temporary power to defeat what we've built together." Samuel adds, "What happened today reminded us that progress isn't automatic. Every generation has to choose dignity over convenience, truth over comfort. Today showed us there's still work to do." Marcus looks at his parents across the dinner table, understanding that their response to cruelty will define not just corporate policy changes, but his own character as a leader responsible for thousands of employees and millions of passengers. "I want to turn Atlantic aviation into the airline industry standard for passenger dignity," he says. "Every policy, every training program, every hiring decision guided by treating people the way we'd want our own family treated." Grace smiles with the satisfaction of someone whose sacrifices are bearing fruit in values passed forward rather than just wealth accumulated. "That's why we mortgaged this house to help you start your company. Not so you could get rich, but so you could make things better for everyone who comes after us." As evening settles over Phoenix, the story of Flight 447 continues spreading across social media and mainstream news, sparking conversations about discrimination, corporate responsibility, and the power of ordinary people to document injustice until it can no longer be ignored. But in the quiet sanctuary of his parents' kitchen, Marcus Davis plans transformation that will honor every passenger's fundamental human dignity, ensuring that what happened to his family becomes the catalyst for change that protects everyone's family. Within 24 hours, elderly dignity matters has become more than a trending hashtag. It's evolved into a movement. Maria Fernandez's original TikTok video has been viewed 47.3 million times, shared by celebrities, politicians, and ordinary people who recognize their own grandparents in Samuel and Grace Davis's quiet dignity under pressure. The comments section tells its own story. "My grandfather was a Tuskegee airman and still gets treated like this in 2024. Some things never change unless we make them change. I work for a different airline, and we've all been watching this story. Management called an emergency meeting about passenger dignity protocols. Those could be anyone's grandparents. The fact that their son owns the airline is beside the point. No one deserves this treatment." Christina Rodriguez thought she was just bullying random elderly passengers. She didn't know she was ending her own career in real time. But the viral moment has transcended individual accountability into widespread institutional examination. Airlines across the industry are reviewing discrimination complaint procedures. Flight attendant unions are implementing sensitivity training. Airport authorities are updating passenger advocacy resources. Dr. Elena Vasquez's medical documentation of Grace's stress-induced hypertension has been cited by healthcare professionals calling for better airline protocols around passenger medical needs. Her Twitter thread has been retweeted 340,000 times, with doctors sharing similar stories of medical neglect at altitude. Most significantly, passengers are sharing their own experiences of airline discrimination that previously went undocumented. The hashtag airline abuse has accumulated thousands of stories from travelers who faced similar treatment but lacked the platform or power to demand justice. Marcus receives a call from Senator Patricia Williams, chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Transportation and Safety. "Mr. Davis, I've been following the story of your parents' mistreatment. I want to commend your immediate response and ask about testifying before our committee about needed reforms in passenger protection." "Senator, I'd be honored. But I want my parents to testify as well. Their experience should be heard directly, not filtered through corporate perspectives. Would they be willing?" Marcus looks at Samuel and Grace, who are reading letters from supporters who've driven to their house to express solidarity. Despite their exhaustion, they're energized by evidence that their ordeal is catalyzing broader change. Mom, Senator Williams wants us to testify before Congress about passenger rights legislation. Grace looks up from a handwritten note from a woman whose disabled husband faced similar airline discrimination. "If our testimony can prevent other families from experiencing what we experienced, then we have an obligation to speak." Samuel nods with the determination of someone who's discovered that personal pain can become public purpose. "We didn't choose to become symbols of anything, But if that's what happened, then we need to make sure it means something lasting. The viral victory extends beyond policy discussions into cultural shifts. Jessica Morales, the junior flight attendant who eventually stood up to Cristina Rodriguez, has become a symbol of moral courage in hostile environments. Her interview with CNN has been viewed 8.7 million times, with viewers praising her choice to do the right thing despite personal risk. "I watched this elderly couple being tortured for 3 hours," Jessica tells Anderson Cooper. "At some point, you have to decide whether keeping your job is worth keeping your soul. I'd rather find new employment than lose my humanity." Tyler Mitchell's cooperation with federal investigators has revealed patterns of discrimination complaints that Skyline management ignored or minimized. His documentation shows that Cristina Rodriguez's behavior wasn't aberrant, it was enabled by institutional indifference to passenger mistreatment. The Department of Transportation announces a comprehensive review of airline discrimination policies, citing the Davis case as evidence that current enforcement mechanisms are inadequate to protect vulnerable passengers. But perhaps the most meaningful response comes from ordinary travelers who've watched the viral videos and decided to change their own behavior. Airport workers report increased passenger courtesy, crew members describe improved interactions, and flight attendants note that passengers are more likely to intervene when they witness unfair treatment. A week after Flight 447, Maria Fernandez receives a message on TikTok that captures the story's broader impact. "I'm a gate agent in Denver. Yesterday I watched a crew member hassle an elderly passenger about their boarding pass. Normally I would have stayed quiet to avoid conflict. But I kept thinking about your video about that couple's dignity being stripped away while people watched silently. So I spoke up. I documented the incident. I filed a report. The passenger got proper treatment, and the crew member got counseled about appropriate conduct. Your courage gave me courage. Thank you." Marcus reads Maria's message with the understanding that viral moments become lasting change when they inspire ordinary people to choose courage over comfort in their own daily encounters with injustice. The story of Flight 447 continues spreading across continents and cultures, translated into dozens of languages, discussed in legislative chambers and corporate boardrooms, analyzed by sociologists, and celebrated by civil rights advocates. But its deepest impact occurs in individual moments, when passengers choose solidarity over silence, when crew members choose compassion over compliance, and when ordinary people remember that everyone deserves to travel with dignity regardless of age, race, or economic status. Samuel and Grace Davis have become reluctant symbols of quiet strength under pressure. Their viral humiliation has transformed into viral inspiration, proving that grace under assault can be more powerful than anger in response to injustice. And their son Marcus has learned that the greatest business success means nothing if it doesn't protect the most vulnerable people from the worst human impulses. The airline industry will be forever changed by 3 hours when dignity was tested and refused to break. 2 weeks after Flight 447, Marcus Davis stands before the combined board of directors of Atlantic Aviation Group and its subsidiary airlines. The conference room overlooks Atlanta's skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows, providing natural light that illuminates documents scattered across mahogany tables, policy drafts, training protocols, and implementation timelines for the most comprehensive airline reform initiative in industry history. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus begins his voice carrying the authority of someone who's witnessed institutional failure's human cost firsthand. 3 weeks ago, my parents were humiliated by employees of an airline I own. That mistreatment was documented by millions of viewers worldwide, sparking conversations about discrimination that extend far beyond our company. He clicks a remote, and the wall screen displays viewer statistics from the viral videos. 89.7 million combined views, 340,000 shares coverage in 47 countries. This isn't just a public relations crisis, it's a moral reckoning. We have a choice: defensive damage control or transformative accountability. I've chosen accountability. Board member Patricia Henderson, a veteran airline executive, raises her hand. Marcus. While the incident was regrettable, implementing sweeping policy changes based on one event might be excessive. It wasn't one event. Marcus interrupts, sliding documents across the table. Tyler Mitchell's cooperation with federal investigators revealed 17 similar discrimination complaints filed against Skyline employees in the past 18 months. 17 incidents that management either ignored, minimized, or buried in bureaucratic procedures. The room falls silent as board members scan the documented complaints. Elderly passengers denied assistance. Disabled travelers forced to prove their conditions. Minority families separated without justification. A pattern of abuse that Cristina Rodriguez's viral cruelty merely exposed rather than initiated. The proposed reforms aren't excessive. Marcus continues. They're essential protection against institutional prejudice that's been operating unchallenged for years. He outlines the comprehensive transformation plan, immediate changes, zero-tolerance policy for passenger discrimination with immediate termination for violations. Anonymous reporting system allowing passengers and employees to document mistreatment. Independent passenger advocacy department with authority to investigate complaints. Mandatory quarterly dignity training for all customer-facing employees. Structural reforms. Passenger Bill of Rights, prominently displayed at every gate and printed on every ticket. Medical assistance protocols ensuring health needs receive priority over operational convenience. Family accommodation policies preventing separation of elderly or disabled passengers without documented safety justification. Cultural sensitivity consultants overseeing hiring training and performance evaluation. Accountability measures. Employee performance evaluations, weighted 40% on customer dignity metrics. Management bonuses tied to passenger satisfaction scores and discrimination complaint resolution. External oversight committee, including disability rights advocates and civil rights attorneys. Public quarterly reporting on complaint statistics and resolution outcomes. Board member David Martinez, representing institutional investors, expresses concern about implementation costs. Marcus. While these reforms are admirable in principle, the financial impact could be substantial. Training thousands of employees, restructuring complaint procedures, external oversight. We're talking about tens of millions in implementation costs. Marcus pulls up financial projections on the wall screen. David, you're right about implementation costs, $47 million in year one, $23 million annually thereafter. But consider the cost of not implementing these reforms. He displays alternative scenarios, federal discrimination lawsuits, congressional oversight hearings, boycotts by civil rights organizations, employee turnover from toxic workplace culture. The potential liability from current discriminatory practices exceeds $200 million. More importantly, the reputational damage from viral mistreatment videos is incalculable. We're not spending money on reforms, we're investing in practices that protect both passengers and shareholders. Grace Davis, attending as a special advisor despite having no official board role, speaks from personal experience. I spent 35 years as a school principal dealing with children who'd been failed by adults in positions of authority. What I learned is that changing policies without changing culture is just expensive paperwork. The real question isn't whether you can afford these reforms, it's whether you can afford not to implement them when the alternative is continued institutional cruelty. Her words carry moral weight that financial projections cannot match. Board members who might resist costly policy changes cannot argue against protecting passenger dignity when the victims are sitting at their conference table. Marcus reveals the program's implementation timeline, immediate termination procedures for discrimination complaints, 30-day training rollout for all employees, 90-day implementation of new reporting structures, annual external audits of compliance and effectiveness. This transformation begins today, he announces. Every Atlantic Aviation employee will understand that passenger dignity isn't negotiable regardless of operational pressures or personal prejudices. The vote is unanimous comprehensive reform implementation across all Atlantic Aviation subsidiaries with quarterly board review of progress and annual assessment of program effectiveness. But Marcus understands that board approval is only the beginning. Cultural transformation requires sustained leadership commitment and employee buy-in that extends beyond policy compliance into authentic behavior change. The Flight 447 incident creates shockwaves across the airline industry that extend far beyond Atlantic Aviation's corporate boundaries. Within 30 days, major carriers begin implementing policy changes designed to prevent viral discrimination incidents that could destroy reputations built over decades. American Airlines announces enhanced sensitivity training for all crew members, citing recent industry events that highlighted gaps in passenger dignity protocols. Delta implements new complaint investigation procedures with external oversight. United creates a passenger advocacy department modeled on Atlantic Aviation's reform initiatives. The competitive pressure is undeniable. Airlines that fail to demonstrate proactive discrimination prevention risk viral incidents that could decimate customer loyalty and invite federal intervention. Marcus receives calls from industry colleagues seeking guidance on policy implementation. Southwest's CEO asks for consultation on anonymous reporting structures. JetBlue requests training materials for dignity protocols. Alaska Airlines wants to benchmark complaint resolution procedures. The industry is watching, Marcus tells his leadership team during weekly reform implementation meetings. Our response to failure is becoming the template for industry-wide change. The transformation extends beyond individual airline policies into federal regulatory review. Senator Williams's subcommittee schedules hearings on passenger protection that will feature testimony from Samuel and Grace Davis, alongside industry executives, civil rights advocates, and disability rights organizations. The Department of Transportation proposes new regulations requiring airlines to maintain public databases of discrimination, complaints, resolution timelines, and employee disciplinary actions. The Federal Aviation Administration considers passenger dignity training as mandatory certification requirements for flight crew licensing. International attention follows domestic reform. The European Union begins reviewing airline discrimination policies based on American viral incidents. Canadian transportation authorities implement enhanced complaint investigation procedures. International Civil Aviation Organization discusses global passenger rights standards. But the most significant industry change occurs at the cultural level. Flight attendant training programs now include mandatory modules on unconscious bias and passenger dignity. Gate agent certification requires sensitivity training that wasn't previously considered necessary. Crew scheduling prioritizes employee mental health support that reduces stress-induced passenger mistreatment. Maria Fernandez, promoted to Atlantic Aviation's Passenger Advocacy Department, receives invitations to speak at airline industry conferences about documentation and intervention strategies. Her TikTok courage has evolved into professional expertise that benefits travelers across the industry. What happened on Flight 447 was a wake-up call, Maria tells the International Association of Flight Attendants annual conference. We learned that passenger abuse doesn't just harm individuals, it damages the entire industry's reputation. Every crew member has the power to prevent viral discrimination incidents through basic human decency. The industry transformation accelerates when passenger advocacy groups begin rating airlines based on discrimination, complaint, resolution, cultural sensitivity, training quality, and passenger dignity, policy implementation. Airlines with strong protections receive preferential ratings that influence booking decisions among socially conscious travelers. Corporate travel departments begin requiring dignity protocols in airline contracts. Government agencies implement passenger protection standards for official travel. Educational institutions and healthcare organizations choose airlines based on discrimination prevention rather than just price competition. The financial incentives align with moral imperatives when airlines discover that dignity-focused policies improve customer loyalty, reduce complaint-related costs, and attract employees who prefer working for ethically responsible organizations. 6 months after Flight 447, the personal consequences for individual actors continue unfolding with the inexorable logic of accountability meeting behavior. Cristina Rodriguez sits in her studio apartment surrounded by legal documents and unpaid bills, facing the reality that viral cruelty has consequences that extend far beyond immediate termination. Her employment prospects remain non-existent. Background checks reveal viral videos that make hiring impossible for any customer service position. LinkedIn connections have disappeared. Professional references decline to provide recommendations. The airline industry's informal networks ensure that her reputation precedes every application. The federal discrimination lawsuit filed by Samuel and Grace Davis names Cristina, personally exposing her to financial liability that could last years. Her homeowner's insurance doesn't cover civil rights violations. Her savings are disappearing into legal fees for representation against charges that documentation makes impossible to dispute. But the deepest consequence isn't financial, it's social isolation from former colleagues who understand that association with her could damage their own career prospects. Friends in the airline industry avoid contact. Former supporters distance themselves from someone whose name has become synonymous with viral discrimination. Tyler Mitchell faces different consequences based on his eventual choice to document misconduct rather than defend it. While terminated from Skyline, his cooperation with federal investigators and willingness to testify about institutional patterns earns him consideration for positions with airlines implementing transparency initiatives. His interview with 60 Minutes becomes a template for accountability without defensiveness. I participated in passenger mistreatment because speaking up seemed risky to my career. I learned that staying silent was the real risk to my conscience, my integrity, and ultimately my employment anyway. Tyler's documentation helps federal investigators understand how discrimination complaints were ignored by Skyline management, leading to broader accountability for supervisors who enabled abusive cultures through institutional indifference. Rebecca Stone, the gate manager who supported false allegations against Samuel and Grace, faces termination and federal investigation for civil rights violations. Her 23-year airline career ends with pension reduction and permanent industry blacklisting. The authority she wielded to humiliate passengers becomes the evidence that destroys her professional future. The legal consequences extend beyond individual terminations into criminal referrals. The Department of Justice reviews whether passenger discrimination violates federal civil rights statutes that could result in criminal charges rather than just civil liability. But accountability also includes recognition for moral courage. Dr. Elena Vasquez receives the Federal Aviation Administration Civilian Medal for medical intervention that protected a passenger from crew negligence. Jessica Morales is promoted to training coordinator and becomes Atlantic Aviation's spokesperson for employee integrity in challenging situations. Maria Fernandez's courage in documenting abuse despite employment risks earns her recognition from civil rights organizations and offers from major news networks seeking investigative journalists willing to expose institutional misconduct. The contrast is stark. People who chose cruelty face isolated consequences that extend for years, while people who chose courage receive recognition and opportunities that advance their careers and influence. Marcus receives regular updates on the personal outcomes for everyone involved in Flight 447. The information reinforces his commitment to cultural transformation that rewards integrity and penalizes abuse. Understanding that individual accountability creates institutional change more effectively than policy modifications alone. People make culture, he tells his leadership team. Policies are just paper until people choose to implement them with integrity or circumvent them with prejudice. The goal isn't perfect policies. It's hiring and promoting people whose character aligns with our values. 6 months later, the personal accountability continues unfolding, with mathematical precision choices made during 3 hours of viral visibility determine career trajectories that will extend for decades, proving that character revealed under pressure has consequences that transcend immediate circumstances. Samuel and Grace Davis sit in their church sanctuary on a Sunday morning that feels both ordinary and extraordinary. The pews around them hold the same faces they've known for decades, neighbors who brought casseroles after their viral ordeal, fellow congregation members who prayed for justice during their darkest hours, young families who look to them as examples of grace under pressure. Pastor Williams approaches the lectern with the same gentle authority he's carried for 23 years, leading Mount Olive Baptist Church. Today's sermon topic appears simple: turning pain into purpose. But everyone in the sanctuary understands it's really about Samuel and Grace. 6 months ago, Pastor Williams begins 2 of our church family experienced something that no one should face in modern America. They were humiliated for the color of their skin, separated despite 52 years of marriage, denied basic human dignity by people who forgot that every passenger is somebody's family. Grace reaches for Samuel's hand. The memory still stings, but the pain has transformed into something powerful, a catalyst for change that protected countless other families from similar mistreatment. But what happened next, the pastor continues, shows us how God works all things together for good. Their son didn't just seek revenge, he sought reform. Their pain became protection for others. Their humiliation became hope for change. After service, Marcus joins his parents for Sunday dinner in the kitchen, where he learned values that shaped him into someone capable of building billion-dollar enterprises while maintaining fundamental decency. The conversation is relaxed, punctuated by laughter and the comfortable silences of people who've weathered crisis together. "How are things at the airline?" Grace asks, passing a plate of cornbread that connects them to generations of family Sunday dinners. "Better," Marcus replies. "Employee satisfaction is up 34% since implementing the dignity protocols. Customer complaints about mistreatment are down 78%. And we're profitable while treating people the way we'd want our own family treated." Samuel nods with the satisfaction of someone whose sacrifices are bearing fruit in values passed forward, rather than just wealth accumulated. "Any regrets about the changes?" he asks. Marcus considers the question while watching his parents share a meal in the home where he learned that success means nothing if it doesn't protect vulnerable people from powerful people's worst impulses. No regrets about the reforms. They were necessary regardless of what happened to you. But I regret that it took watching my own parents be humiliated to understand problems that should have been obvious from customer complaints we ignored. The honesty strengthens rather than weakens family bonds. Marcus's willingness to acknowledge institutional failures he should have prevented earlier demonstrates growth that extends beyond corporate policy into personal character development. Grace shares updates from letters they continue receiving from travelers who experienced similar airline discrimination but lacked platforms or power to demand justice. A woman from Detroit wrote that her disabled husband was denied assistance boarding a flight until other passengers intervened. An elderly couple from Montana described being separated on their anniversary trip because crew members decided they looked suspicious. Families across the country telling us our story gave them courage to report their own mistreatment. The letters represent Flight 447's lasting impact, individual courage, inspiring collective action that creates change extending far beyond Marcus's airline into industry-wide transformation. The federal legislation passed last month, Samuel adds, referring to the Passenger Dignity Protection Act that includes provisions directly inspired by their testimony before Congress. Anonymous reporting structures, mandatory sensitivity training, independent oversight of discrimination complaints that's going to protect millions of travelers. Marcus realizes that his parents' ordeal has achieved something no corporate initiative could accomplish alone: federal intervention that requires all airlines to implement protections. Atlantic Aviation pioneered voluntarily. Mom, Dad. I need you to know something, Marcus says, with the gravity of someone who's learned that personal pain can become public purpose. What happened to you was wrong, inexcusable, and my responsibility as the owner of that airline. But your response, refusing to become bitter, focusing on protecting other families, testifying before Congress, despite painful memories that turned trauma into triumph. Grace smiles with maternal wisdom accumulated over 71 years of life and 52 years of marriage to a man who taught her that dignity cannot be stolen, only surrendered. Baby, we didn't choose to become symbols of anything. But if God used our pain to prevent other families from experiencing what we experienced, then our suffering served a purpose larger than ourselves. The conference room at Atlantic Aviation Headquarters displays a wall-mounted monitor showing real-time customer satisfaction metrics that tell a story of transformation extending far beyond policy compliance into cultural revolution. Marcus addresses his senior leadership team 6 months after implementing the most comprehensive passenger dignity initiative in airline industry history. Customer loyalty is at historic highs, he reports, reviewing quarterly statistics. Employee satisfaction has increased 43%. Federal discrimination complaints against our airlines have dropped to 0. Revenue has grown 28%, while operating costs decreased through improved efficiency and reduced complaint resolution expenses. The numbers validate moral choices that some board members initially questioned on financial grounds. Treating passengers with dignity isn't just ethically correct. It's economically advantageous when implemented authentically, rather than performatively. But Marcus understands that statistical success means nothing compared to individual stories of transformation that demonstrate lasting change in human behavior, rather than temporary compliance with new policies. Maria Fernandez leads our passenger advocacy department with the same courage she showed documenting abuse on Flight 447. He continues. Dr. Vasquez consults on medical assistance protocols that prevent health emergencies from becoming discrimination incidents. Jessica Morales trains crew members to choose compassion over compliance when rules conflict with human needs. The leadership team reviews case studies from the past 6 months, elderly passengers receiving assistance without being questioned about their conditions. Disabled travelers accommodated proactively rather than reluctantly. Families kept together during travel disruptions because separation causes unnecessary trauma. The transformation isn't complete, Marcus acknowledges. Changing institutional culture requires sustained effort over years, not months. But the foundation is solid. Every employee understands that passenger dignity isn't negotiable, regardless of operational pressures or personal prejudices. Jennifer Martinez, head of legal affairs, provides updates on federal compliance that demonstrate Atlantic Aviation's reforms exceeding regulatory requirements rather than meeting minimum standards. The Department of Transportation uses our protocols as templates for industry-wide implementation. Congressional oversight committees cite our passenger advocacy program as evidence that voluntary reform can achieve better outcomes than mandatory enforcement. International aviation authorities are adopting our dignity training requirements for global implementation. Marcus realizes that Flight 447's viral infamy has evolved into industry leadership that influences airline practices worldwide. His parents' humiliation has become the catalyst for transformation that protects millions of travelers from similar mistreatment. The meeting concludes with planning for the next phase of cultural evolution, expanding dignity protocols beyond passenger interactions into employee treatment, vendor relationships, and community engagement that demonstrates values in every aspect of business operations. But the true victory isn't measured in customer satisfaction scores or federal compliance ratings. It's visible in Samuel and Grace Davis sitting together in first-class seats on their monthly visits to see Marcus traveling with the comfort and respect they should have received from the beginning. It's apparent in viral videos that now show Atlantic aviation crew members going above and beyond to assist elderly passengers, disabled travelers, and families experiencing travel stress behavior that earns praise rather than condemnation from social media audiences. Most importantly, it's evident in the understanding that power is only meaningful when used to protect people who need protection, and success is only sustainable when it serves something larger than profit margins or personal advancement. Samuel and Grace Davis transformed 3 hours of humiliation into lasting change that will protect travelers for generations. Their quiet dignity under assault became louder than anger, their refusal to surrender humanity more powerful than retaliation. And their son Marcus learned that the greatest business success means nothing if it doesn't honor the people who made it possible and protect the vulnerable from the powerful's worst impulses. On a quiet Thursday evening, 6 months after Flight 447, Samuel and Grace Davis sit on their front porch, watching Phoenix's desert sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple that remind them how beautiful the world can be when viewed with eyes that choose hope over bitterness. The house behind them remains unchanged, modest 2-story, with a creaking porch and a maple tree that drops leaves like reminders of time's passage. But the world around them has shifted in ways both profound and subtle, transformed by 3 hours when dignity was tested and refused to break. Letters continue arriving from travelers whose experiences improved because of reforms sparked by their ordeal. A disabled veteran writes about airline crew members who assisted him with genuine respect rather than grudging compliance. An elderly couple describes family accommodation during weather delays that kept them together instead of separated. Each letter represents someone who didn't have to experience what we experienced. Grace says, holding correspondence from a woman whose autistic child received patient assistance during a meltdown that could have triggered discrimination rather than compassion. Samuel nods with the satisfaction of someone whose personal pain achieved public purpose. 50 years ago, I would have been angry that it took viral videos to get basic human decency. Today, I'm grateful that social media gave ordinary people the power to demand accountability from powerful institutions. Their conversation is interrupted by Marcus's arrival for his weekly family dinner. Despite owning private jets and corporate helicopters, he drives himself to his parents' house in the used Toyota Camry he bought in college, a reminder of values that shaped him before wealth created options that could corrupt character. "How was your week?" Grace asks the same question she's posed every Thursday for 20 years. Educational, Marcus replies, settling into the porch chair where he learned integrity from parents who demonstrated it rather than preached it. "We're implementing the dignity protocols at our cargo operations, our charter services, and our airport ground handling companies. The goal isn't just reformed airline service, it's cultural transformation across every aspect of our business." The reforms continue spreading beyond Atlantic aviation into competitor airlines, federal regulations, and international aviation standards. Flight 447's viral documentation has become the template for accountability that extends far beyond individual consequences into institutional change. "Any regrets?" Samuel asks the same question he posed 6 months earlier with different implications now. "Only that it took watching you and Mom being humiliated to understand problems I should have recognized from complaint data we collected but didn't analyze seriously enough." Marcus responds with honesty that strengthens rather than weakens family bonds. Grace shares her final thoughts about transformation that began with cruelty but evolved into authentic reform. "What happened to us was wrong. But wrong things can serve right purposes when people choose courage over comfort." Maria Fernandez risked her job to document abuse. Dr. Vasquez intervened when crew members failed us. Tyler Mitchell eventually chose truth over complicity. You chose transformation over damage control. As darkness settles over Phoenix, the family prepares to return inside for dinner around the kitchen table, where Marcus learned that success without integrity is just expensive failure and power without compassion is simply organized cruelty. The viral videos of their mistreatment continue circulating across social media platforms, but now they're accompanied by follow-up stories documenting change that protected countless other families from similar experiences. Samuel offers the evening prayer that has concluded their Thursday dinners for 2 decades. Lord, help us remember that our pain can become other people's protection, our struggles can become other people's strength, and our commitment to dignity can become other people's hope. The words carry across the quiet neighborhood where ordinary people live, ordinary lives touched by extraordinary grace. When crisis reveals character and choice determines destiny. Flight 447 began with humiliation designed to strip away human dignity. It ended with viral documentation that sparked transformation, protecting millions of travelers from similar mistreatment. The true victory isn't revenge against people who chose cruelty. It's reform that ensures their cruelty cannot be repeated against anyone else's grandparents, anyone else's parents, anyone else's family traveling with the simple expectation that basic human dignity should never cost extra. If this story moves you, it's because dignity matters, regardless of age, race, or economic status. Justice doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives with cameras, documentation, and the courage to stand up when staying seated would be easier. Share this story with someone who needs to remember they belong, because every passenger deserves respect, every traveler merits dignity, and every family should be treated the way we'd want our own family treated. Remember that transformation happens when good people choose courage over comfort in moments that matter most. The flight that began with humiliation landed with hope. The couple who faced cruelty with unwavering grace proved that dignity cannot be stolen, only surrendered. This story reminds us that power is most meaningful when used to protect people who need protection most. If you believe everyone deserves to travel with dignity, if you think stories like this matter, if you want to support content that celebrates quiet strength over loud anger, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with your friends and family because these stories need to be heard. Comment below if you've ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling, and let us know how we can continue to make a difference together. Thank you for watching, and remember, your voice matters. Your dignity is non-negotiable, and sometimes the most powerful response to injustice is simply refusing to let it make you less than who you are. Until next time, stay strong, stand up for what's right, and never forget that every person you meet is someone's family member who deserves your respect.